Engineer Gold Mines is focused on the exploration and development of the historic high-grade Engineer Gold Mine situated 32 kilometers southwest of Atlan, British Columbia. Engineer Gold Mines is fully permitted for surface and underground exploration with the drill program now underway. Engineer Gold Mines Limited trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol EAU. For more information, please visit us at engineergoldmines.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the Leibovit VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. Welcome back to the show, Mark. And you're still broadcasting from a different location than where you usually broadcast from in Arizona.
Yes, the last couple, 3 weeks I've been on the East Coast here in a little town, Atlantic Beach, New York, and family matter, and enjoying the weather on the East Coast. The walk along the beaches and stuff, something we don't get in Phoenix. So great, it's a great break. Unfortunately, I'm here on a family issue, but still, it's enjoyable. Do
you still have a special offer for the listeners?
Yeah, we do. You're going to VRTrader.com, and you choose any one of the many newsletters we have up there on the screen, and you enter on the order form the promo code 2021 half off. You get 50% off for any of the subscriptions you sign up for any of the time frames you sign up for. So it's a great deal, and again, we have our metal resource letter, we have our cannabis letter, we have a blockchain letter for the crypto, we have our overall trading letter, both VR Trader Platinum and Trading Ace. We have our annual forecast model called the VR Forecaster, so you have plenty of choices. And again, 2021 half off is the promo code.
Now, talking about the cryptos, Bitcoin, is it a signal that the party's over for cryptos, or is this just a break?
I just think it's a break. Looking at the charts, there's so many cryptos out there and tokens, and you gotta look at which one you're looking at, because it's literally you're talking thousands of possibilities. They're the top 5 or 10. The big one that we've talked about previously that's caught a lot of attention because of Elon Musk and Mark Cuban and others is the Dogecoin, D-O-G-E coin. Many affectionately refer to it as the doggy coin. I like it because of the gorgeous little doggy pictures, and it's really made, for a business which is crazy anyway, it really made it so fun, having all these visuals up on the screen with the dog sitting in a spacesuit heading to the moon, supposedly because it's where the price of the Dogecoin was to be headed, and according to what Elon Musk was saying, and on and on and on. So it's volatile. I mean, the thing was up thousands of percent. It ran up to I think about 70 cents, pulled back to about 30 cents, but it was trading for under a penny or a fraction of a penny for a long time. But you got big guys promoting it. You have the possibility of some big companies like Amazon accepting it, and that's just one of many. The XRP coin is the other big one. But, the thing to keep in mind here is the big players have come into this space. This is not just, flash in the pan type situation by any stretch. Carl Icahn, in fact, came out with a comment, I think it was yesterday, about how he's going to be entering the Bitcoin crypto world with an investment possibly $1.5 billion. It's a wave of the future. And then what you also have going on is the government, jawboning against it, like Janet Yellen coming out. In fact, I posted a picture of her on my website next to the picture of Margaret Hamilton from The Wizard of Oz, comparing her to the Wicked Witch of the West, for those who like a little amusement and entertainment. But basically, government sticking their nose into free enterprise and coming out with, guidelines that if I believe you have $10,000 of a coin or something, you have to report to the Internal Revenue Service or the Treasury your position, this kind of nonsense. The whole reason the coins were created was to avoid government, the fear of, currencies going to zero, the exercise of freedom away from government interference or surveillance. And it's a revolution. And the government want to take it down. They're going to have a fight on their hands, big time. It could get violent, too. So this is a sign of, freedom. And but more than that, I think the big boys see money to be made. You can almost compare this to the communist Chinese. You can say they're evil, and I guess they are evil on a certain level, but they're also, capitalists. And, even those that may not like the cryptos, if they see they can make money with it, then, more than likely it will continue and flourish, which is what I think is going to happen. So, timing is everything. Personally, I traded some of these things. They trade 24 hours a day, which is, you have to be on the, certain platforms to do it. And if you're technically oriented, like I am, but many people are, you can see the swings in the price, and you can, try to sell the rallies and buy the pullbacks and, trade them, or you can just hold them for, some super big gains. But, I can't predict, whether Bitcoin is over or one is going to do better than the other. You just got to take each one and evaluate it based on your own, research. So, we talk about them a little bit in our blockchain letter, but, I think from my perspective, again, my website's VR Trader. I'm not saying you shouldn't hold some of these, but, some people have done very well holding some of these, but, my viewpoint is more, you trade the darn things. And if you have the ability to trade them, why not do it? We're here to make money. And that's what the nature of the newsletter and our business is all about. But I'm bullish on them, to answer your question. I don't think we're anywhere near the end. They thought Bitcoin was over. You remember a couple of years ago when it went to 30,000 before it dropped to 20,000, and it went to 60,000. There's some predicting $500,000 to $1 million for Bitcoin, and I don't know if those predictions will come true or not. Most of the predictions out there that it's going to go to zero. And just as a final comment, I mean, the financial press, CNBC, on, all these commentators out there, I mean, basically they're negative on the cryptos. And of course now you've got Carl Icahn coming out and some of the big players getting into the business. But, I wonder if they pay these guys, these reporters to badmouth it, so the prices are kept low so the big boys can get in there and accumulate positions. That's sort of my interpretation, because I don't see this as anywhere near the end of the cycle.
Well, if you have billionaires getting into the cryptos, and they're the ones who finance the politicians, would the politicians dare piss off the people who are financing them?
Good point. That's a good point. How many people like Elon Musk, for example, who's behind, if you recall recently, took a position in Bitcoin. I think there was some story that he made $1.5 billion in Bitcoin, more than he was actually making selling Tesla automobiles, and then apparently he stopped accepting Bitcoin for an automobile, which was happening for some period of time. But he's behind that Dogecoin, the Dogecoin now, among others, as I mentioned earlier. Again, you could be right. I mean, politicians are supported by the wealthy, and if they feel that this is something that needs to continue, that would help. But I'm not worried about that. It's an international phenomenon going on for a while, still in the early stages. All the young people are involved in it. It's the wave of the future. And, the coins offer flexibility and transactions and all kinds of, financial, situations that are unavailable otherwise. And I just think, this is just something we have to reckon with. The question is one day, is our checking accounts all going to be digitized into some type of coin that the government is going to enforce or make us use, or we're going to decide that, we don't want our money in the banks, and we're just going to and forget cash, and we're just going to do business digitally in one form of a coin or another. But there's so many enterprises that are accepting coins for payment that, again, this is still early in the game, in my opinion.
Well, at the start of the COVID thing, a lot of businesses refused to take cash because they were scared, or said they were scared to handle cash, so it was electronic transactions only. And that reminds me of the Great Plague in London back in the 1300s, where people insisted on you washing your coins with vinegar to rid them of any possible contagion before you handed over your money. Funny how things just come back again and again. And now we know, of course, money doesn't carry it. It's a, airborne disease. But the same businesses still won't take your cash. Now, do you think the government is encouraging this as a war against cash because they can't track the transactions? And if they do ban cash and everything has to be electronic, will people who want to, say, have private wagers between each other but don't want government records of it, or, just swapping stuff around, barter with their neighbors, they don't want that recorded either because they don't want it taxed. Will there be a new kind of currency that isn't official from the government?
Right. I'm not sure how you avoid that surveillance. I know the whole issue has been privacy and so forth. Maybe there'll be some cryptos that will protect you that way. I mean, this new regulation that supposedly Janet Yellen is trying to enforce doesn't sound like they're coming into your account and checking. They're saying you have to disclose what you've done. So maybe they have no access, and it's up to you to report just to be in compliance with the government. So we'll find out how it all plays out. It's just a whole bunch of nonsense. It's like you only can take so many dollars across the border. You can't carry gold with you. I mean, the government, has gone too far, too long in sticking their nose into private people's transactions and affairs. And whether this is all going to change with the crypto world or some other political or social event, only time will tell. But I don't think people want invasion of privacy, and I think that's why one of the reasons cryptos even started to gain so much following.
We'll have more with Mark Leibovit right after this.
Media recognition from Bloomberg, Reuters, recycling trade publications, patented process for 100% recovery of critical metals, including cobalt, lithium, nickel, manganese, aluminum. American Manganese is focused on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. American Manganese trades on the TSX Venture, AMY, the US, AMYZF, and Frankfurt 2AM. For more information, visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Mark Leibovit. Mark, China is cracking down on commodity speculators and hoarders. What is that telling us about the Chinese economy?
Well, I know there's been a shortage of some of the commodities, and that's been a supply chain issue, and that's driven up some of the prices. I don't know all the details of the story that you're referring to, but certainly it's going to certainly inflate prices. There has been inflationary forces at work. Copper is a notable example. Lumber, even though lumber did have a little bit of a correction in the last couple of weeks. So, question is, how long will that influence last, and what impact beyond what it's already had, have on the market? I'm more of a free market person, and I think anytime governments stick their nose into something, it's just a temporary blip on the screen. So the free markets will determine the price and deliverability of these commodities ultimately. So I'm not too worried about it.
China's one-child policy has worked too well. Their population is expected to start to decline within 4 years. And why is that bad news for China? Is it because they were trying to create a homegrown consumer market so they weren't so reliant on exports?
Don't know much about that. All I know is that I had a relative who adopted a child in China in the last 15 years. In fact, I was over there during the adoption period. It's an interesting story, and I'm getting off on a tangent here a little bit, but it sort of brings to light a little bit of the Chinese mentality. At that time, it was in the town of, or city of Guangzhou. It was a hotel known as the White Swan Hotel, and at that time, literally hundreds of Chinese girls, would find adopted parents here in the U.S., so a bunch of parents would come over. I was in that group through helping a relative out and just watching the adoption process unfold. You really weren't sure who you were getting, in the adoption process. But the interesting point of that was there were no males in the adoption sequence. It was only girls. So at that moment in time, and I'm going back about 15 years, the Chinese, decided girls were dispensable, but boys weren't because of the lineage and, the way the Chinese culture is set up. Everything passes apparently more on the male side. But, they stopped that after a while when they realized, gee, if there's no women around, what's happening to our economy, population, and of course, and the men are getting a little frustrated not having the women that they need, so that changed. So now you bring up the issue about the children policy. So what my experience has been, there's no real policy, or it changes based on the moods of some politicians in terms of their short-term perspective over there. First it's all girls and then it's nobody, and I think they haven't really figured out what their long-term needs are. They want to cut back on the population, but at some point, they need men for the army, they need women to make the men, and they need the population to produce goods and services. So I don't know how successful they're going to be, Jim. I don't know, and they obviously seem to be very indecisive about planning when things change, as I saw them change, and now you're indicating there is a policy change going on at this time. It's a dictatorial situation there, and I guess it's who's in control at the moment. That's really what it comes down to. And, they'll, just like they changed the old girl adoption policy, and they got rid of that, I'm sure they could change the current edict as well.
On the energy front, do you think that oil prices are going to remain high?
I believe so. And, it's so funny, the Keystone Pipeline was canceled and so forth and so on. Of course, that's a whole job issue, but, the whole idea was, we don't need fossil fuels anymore, and, we're happy to convert to a green world. And, but we are finding out that there's still significant demand for fossil fuels, and if you want to convert to a green environment, whether it's solar panels or windmills or even if you want to go into nuclear, you still need oil-based products. You still need crude oil to produce a lot of the products and materials that are needed to create the green world enterprises. So, I don't have all the numbers in front of me, but I know I had read somewhere like to produce a windmill, green-friendly windmill. I mean, it's like 60% crude oil related in terms of the materials that go into that windmill to make it what they're trying to create. So it's a catch-22 situation. I mean, you're going to want to build a whole world of solar panels, windmills, and so forth and so on, but you don't have the materials to build it, then what are you going to do? So my opinion is prices for crude oil are going to go up because the demand, if they start shutting down things like the Keystone Pipeline and the ability to produce oil, and because they have this negative mentality against oil and the green concept that it's polluting the planet and so forth and so on, then it's going to drive whatever resources there are in the oil market higher and higher. I mean, I think in the next few years you're going to see crude oil substantially higher. I mean, well above the $140 a barrel number that we saw a few years ago. I don't know if that was 2007, 2014. I'm losing track of time, but I think we could see the record highs in the years ahead, and maybe even much, much higher than that number. So, we have the foxes watching the chicken house, and people are not thinking clearly about what, when they make statements or they make plans, what's involved in executing those plans. So, yes, to answer your question, I'm bullish. Now, we have other things on the table too. You got potential conflict, always moment to moment in the Near East, Middle East, and you've got the Taiwan, China situation brewing out there as well. And, any type of military conflict, no matter how limited, could jack up oil prices as well. And, there's a lot of things on the table here. So, I wouldn't be looking for any big decline in oil prices.
Also, we had Joseph Schachter, who does the Schachter Energy Report, was saying, yes, North America seems to be slowly, very slowly weaning itself off crude oil, but places like most of Asia, they would gladly like to see some gasoline flow their way. Same thing with Africa. And he expects the demand will keep going up even if Europe and North America ease off.
Right. There's a whole world. This is a good point you made. I'm glad you brought it up. Somehow it's like, a geocentric viewpoint of the universe. It's like we're the center of the universe here in the United States and Canada, and what we do, the whole world does, and we're right and everybody else is wrong. It's like, environmental issues, pollution. We try to control pollution when China wasn't even considering that as a big issue, though they have turned a little bit. Demand for oil around the world is much different than here. Their interest in converting to the green environment may be much less than our politicians are talking about. Yeah, you're 100% correct. I mean, there's a whole world out there, and it could be that much of them could care less about what we think about crude oil or green energy. So I do know, however, that many, for years, have been building nuclear plants, where in the U.S. and Canada it's been held back because of the ridiculous viewpoint that it was dangerous and we have to get rid of nuclear. And now we're finding out that to supply all the electrical energy for the electric vehicles that everybody wants to build between now and 2050, they're supposed to replace all the oil-based, crude oil-based engines in North America. You're going to need a much greater sources of electricity to charge those vehicles. So where's that going to come from? So you might need more nuclear plants. And I believe, a 10-year or more lead time to create put a nuclear plant back into operation. So I think that's one of the reasons why uranium has been upticking here a little bit too. I think the realization has come that despite many years of anti-nuclear uranium, political views, it's going to be changing as there's a balance. You want electric vehicles, where are you going to get the electricity? And who's going to supply it? And if oil's not going to do it, maybe it has to be uranium, because the windmills are not going to give you enough electricity, and the solar panels are not going to give you enough electricity. So uranium is one of the places you got to be looking to invest.
Mark, we just had a lunar eclipse. Any effect on the markets from that geocosmic event?
Gee, we always see little change points in the market day to day. I look at the lunar cycles, and not a dramatic one here, but we've had some solar flares past the planet in the last day or two. No tremendous impact. They call them a coronal mass ejections from the sun. I watch this stuff. There's a group, the Foundation for the Study of Cycles, been around for decades, and I was a member of that group, and I get some of their literature, but they were tracking solar flares and not only the position of the moon and stuff forever, and you would see impacts on these things, and it is worth tracking, and it's not the kind of stuff you pick up and read on USA Today or CNBC or Canadian Business News Network minute to minute. It's kind of stuff you want to pay attention to. In fact, you had pointed out in a previous interview that powerful geomagnetic storm, that Carrington event back in 1859, if you remember, so that knocked out a lot of electrical disruptions and blackouts even back then, the telegraph or whatever that was in existence. So, you get a storm like that coming through, and then, the Earth's a small place and the sun's a very big place, and you get one of those, and it could happen at any time. It can knock out, maybe just the old fear of an EMP event. We could knock out everything here on the planet, or at least temporarily, and really surprise people. So we're just a small piece of the universe. So we're checking solar flares. There's also been an increase, just as an aside here, since you brought up geocosmic, there's been an increase in recent days in volcanic activity. I've had there's a website you can go to that tracks all the volcanic activity on the planet, and there's been an increase, several active volcanoes, one in Alaska, the ones in Hawaii, for example. I think the Great Sitkin volcano up in Alaska. Just stuff going on, and there have been a lot of predictions among many analysts who do geocosmic research that as we move into 2022, 2023, we could see increased volcanic and earthquake activity. And if this doesn't affect our economy or the world on some level, I don't know what, but you got to pay attention to this stuff. We're not isolated here. Certainly the phases of the moon and the tides have effect on us and the markets. There are many analysts out there who track this, and they can show correlations, as I have over the years, that there are movements related to the seasonality of where we are, whether it's the autumnal equinox, the vernal, the winter solstice, where we are, and the seasons, where we are in terms of the planets and the sun and the earth, that there are correlations. So we pay attention to this stuff over the years, and one of the big calls we made is like around the vernal eclipse, the vernal equinox, or the March event, where you see key change points in the market. We've seen around the mid-March time frame of big lows or big highs in the market, mostly big lows. So the seasonal effects do play in, and I have a lot of research and friends who do this type of research we pay attention to. So there's stuff going on out there, and we're monitoring it. And if we see a report there's a big solar event occurring, and there's a one of these waves headed toward the Earth, it's something you want to pay attention to.
Mark, are you seeing some interesting plays, perhaps recent plays from the past?
We're getting some renewed action in some of the so-called short squeeze stocks that made headlines here in the last few months, most notably GameStop, which you probably recall, GME, a little $20 stock that goes to $450 a share on a supposed manipulation or short squeeze. Another one, AMC, which is the movie theater chain, Sundial, which is a little Vancouver marijuana company that goes from 30 cents to nearly $5. These were in play, and now we're starting to see some action again. AMC in particular took off in the last few days. GME starting to move again. And what's happening is that these are not, the realization is coming that these are not just short squeeze plays. These were stocks that were heavily shorted by hedge funds and other institutions who mistakenly thought these companies were going to zero and had no earnings or no future. And suddenly new management has come into several of these companies. All of the ones that I mentioned is the case. Many of them have raised capital and maybe big turnaround situations. So the shorts are getting their rear end handed to them. And you're seeing stocks like the Sundial trading 500 million shares. I think it was yesterday. It's a little 60-cent stock that goes to 90 cents. Well, trading 500 million shares, and there's money to be made on that if you're a trader. And we had that as one of our names on our list for a trade. AMC, the entertainment company, huge move in the last 2 days. If you look at the chart, near record vol. Moving up. Supposedly this company wasn't supposed to be around and exist, and a new management has come in there, and there might be some turnaround. So a lot of interesting stuff happening there. So what we're looking for is some companies that are heavily shorted by the hedge funds that could be targets for these short squeeze, or maybe, as I mentioned, a turnaround situation in and of itself. So there are another couple names that we've mentioned in our newsletters, but that's definitely been going on. Also, we're starting to see continued move, and we don't like to talk about it, but it's a fact. Several of the gun stocks, ammunition companies, protective companies like Taser, people worrying about civil unrest, they're moving to new relative highs here in recent sessions. There's a lot of concern about that out there, and there's also concern that restrictions on gun ownership might be a risk in the future. So investors are gobbling up these shares, thinking that there's going to be more people buying, guns and related paraphernalia. So that's been sort of an interesting area in the markets here in the last several sessions. So, with that old expression, Jim, there's a bull market somewhere. We have to just look and find it. We talked about cryptos earlier, but there's still sectors that are attracting investor interest, and here at VR Trader, we try to find them.
Mark, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Always fun. Thank you so much.
My guest has been Mark Leibovit, editor and publisher of the VR newsletters, also known as VRTrader.com. If you have any questions for Mark or any of our other guests, you can send them to info@HowStreet.com. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Find us on Twitter @HowStreet. We're also on Facebook. I'm Jim Goddard. Thank you for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.